Hey guys, my name is Moon and welcome back for more Witch on the Holy Night. So last episode, Aoko and Sojiro teamed up, right? And they were fighting this puppet, this automaton. So the battle hasn't finished yet. So let's continue and let's see what happens.
Initio eraberamos dum vidimus dolores sunt. Nemo adiuvat, nemo adiuvat, nemo adiuvat.
The chant became a curse that robbed Aoko of her vitality. Did it still have something left in the tank, or was it actually indignant? Whatever the reason, Aoko was easily able to resist its weakened defensive maneuver. Oh, Aoko actually smacked it though. She hit it, and her right leg, pulsing with magical energy, shot up into the puppet's chest from below. It was much lighter than Aoko anticipated, or rather she felt little resistance. An automaton's weight was determined by its internals, the size of its power source. Ironically, it was the superiority of its music box engine that would prove to be its downfall. Oh, it's destroyed.
Venite, venite, meum sepulchrum venite.
A stuttering curse. Having taken the full brunt of Aoko's kick, the puppet bounded from the ceiling to the floor, collapsing in a heap. Its internal construction had been warped by the impact, leaving the drum of the musical box that powered the puppet warped as well.
恨むなら設計者を恨みなさい。ダイナモの一つでも積んでいれば、もうちょっとは重たくなったでしょうに。で、
Part of the ceiling came crashing down in front of Aoko, snapping her back to her senses.
ところで今、どうやってぶっ倒したんだろう。
She was so stunned by her own victory that she forgot the House of Mirrors had already begun to collapse.
こっちのがやばかった。
There was no time to relish in her victory or pity her opponent, not unless she wanted to meet the same fate. As the situation stood, she found it hard to imagine getting out alive.
急げ、ダッシュだ私。
She slapped herself on the cheek and took off. This was her bounty for finishing their battle in a matter of seconds. With her breathing labored by all the excitement, she ran for the exit. The collapse was intensifying by the second. Having lost its support pillars, the castle was buckling under its own weight.
この邪魔。
Escaping from the basement was proving to be no easy task. While she was taking the shortest route possible through the maze, she was nearly crushed by a falling piece of the ceiling along the way. Second time, or this was the second time, no, third, she had to deal with fallen rubble along the way. She destroyed the debris on the stairs with magic bullets as she ran. The automaton's jamming had long since worn off. The earlier attack had damaged the vast majority of its functions. Her breathing was heavy as she ran. The intensity surrounding her sparked her brain into overdrive. The ceiling seemed to be collapsing in slow motion. For her, a second felt like 5. Her frayed nerves made it hard to read time correctly. As her life seemed to flash before her eyes, a light at the end of the tunnel. Why is it still alive? Oh no. There was a debris riddled through the stairway, forcing her to crawl up to it. She emerged from the destroyed basement into the collapsing first floor. Where is Sojiro? That the plaza was still traversable at all was a miracle in and itself, and unfortunately for her, the crucial path to the exit was still intact.
よし、ついてる。
The corridor to the entrance was still intact. The basement maze only extended as far as the plaza, so the entrance corridor wouldn't collapse. Only the ceiling would cave in, leaving the scaffolding surround intact. She got herself this far by telling herself repeatedly that fate would decide whether or not she should reach the plaza. Her gamble paid off, as it was her lucky day. All she had to do was muster the last of her strength and keep moving forward until... She hesitated for a second, or for a fraction of a second. Was it a naivety, a sense of responsibility? She pushed aside the image that popped into her head and continued running down the corridor.
言っとくけど、時間合わせの余裕はないわよ。そんな上等な作戦じゃないし、お互いできることをやったら最速で出口に向かいましょう。
That was 5 minutes ago. At the time, Sojiro nodded with trepidation. And Aoko had not bothered to ask herself why.
何様だっての私。今は走ることだけ考えろ。
The corridor or this corridor was giving out too. If she were to look back, she was sure she would see the building collapsing in on her. She was also sure she had no time to waste doing so. Her luck was fading as fast as the building's structural integrity. It was a small miracle that she had escaped serious injury up to this point, and she could not afford even the slightest slip-up. An ankle sprain, a loss of balance, even a sneeze would be fatal. A simple pat on the back was enough to end it. So naturally... Oh no, it's following! There it is, or there it was, clear as day. From the detritus of the stairway, a death had arisen to take her down with it. A corpse that had crawled its way up to from the depths of hell itself. It was still operational. And it was still armed with curses. It had crawled after her, watching as Aoko desperately tried to save herself. The puppet's arm shot forward, while Aoko did not turn to meet it. She could see its reflection in the mirrors.
E salvatio, e salvatio, e salvatio, e salvatio.
Extend, extend, extend. This time, she could not dodge it. There was absolutely nothing she could do. The puppet with her face sang.
Venit domum meum. Lut simile somnium. Et pulvere simile quotidianum. Corprebo. Te judico.
For a moment, she could not believe her eyes. This was the last thing she expected to see.
しつこいぞ、お前。
A fierce expression adorned the face of the boy who had been waiting in the plaza as he smashed the puppet's outstretched arm. Anger really did not suit him at all. His weapon of choice was a fire extinguisher. Come on, Sojiro. He must have searched for the maze for something to use a weapon. No, never mind that. It was too crazy to contemplate, but had he stayed behind for her? Aoko stopped the feat as she had sworn to herself she would never stop moving and extended a hand out to him.
そんなのほっといていいから早く
Sojiro tossed the fire extinguisher aside and took off running. Pieces of ceiling continued to collapse like dominoes. They kept moving with dust and dirt following in their wake. Their shadows raced through the collapsing corridor with all their strength. The castle was in the throes of death. With a massive crash and a cloud of dust, the final chapter of the fairy tale that had been Kitsy Land came to an abrupt end. It's over. The duel to the death was over. For a moment, amidst their swirling emotions, all past enmity was left behind, and the two collapsed on the lawn and basked in a strange solidarity. The ringing in their ears subsided before long. A tremor of such magnitude seemed impossible in an amusement park like this. As the sounds of destruction echoed across the park, Aoko addressed the individual at her side.
ねえ生きてるチェ
While the click of her tongue was adorable, the meaning behind it was anything but.
青崎あいつどうなった？
見ての通りよ今頃バラバラ死体になってるんじゃない
Sojiro sighed, not wholly relieved by her frank response. His reason?
でもそんな心配より自分の心配をした方がいいと思うわよしずきくん
He wasn't out of the woods yet after all. Come on. They were fighting pretty much life and death there. They were teaming up and now? Come on, Aoko.
青崎子供の頃はいじめっ子だっただろ。
可逆趣味はないって自負してるけどそれで今の自分の立場分かってる
She sat up and smiled. Sojiro hung his head in shame, wondering why her kind of tone and expression were so chilling.
面目次第もございません。
かしこまってもダメよあの提案には大前提があったわよねこれは取引だってあなたが役に立つのなら見逃してあげるっていう
わかってる。だから面目ないって言ってるだろ。
Sojiro made a show of avoiding her eyes, like a pouting child. Aoko was taken aback by this sulky display. Perhaps he was angry at himself rather than her. He was not mad because she would not let him go. He was mad that he had not done his part. Aoko sighed for what seemed like the millionth time that day. She could not figure out what surprised her more, his unconditional kindness or her naive approval of it.
じゃあ覚悟はできてるの
そんなのはできないけど約束だからな。結局は何もしていないし。
It was certainly the case that he failed to do any of the things she had expected of him. But just then, she glanced back at the collapsed house of mirrors. What had he done after failing so spectacularly? He had searched for the extinguisher so he could use it as a weapon. and waited patiently in the plaza as the maze collapsed all around him because he thought it was wrong for him or wrong of him to leave alone. It was a foolish choice and the exact opposite of her choice to run towards the exit without hesitation.
ま、それでよしとするか。
She was satisfied even as she was shocked at how naive she was being. It was true that he had saved her. She smiled inwardly, admiring, if only for a moment, the bravery he continued to show in the face of such extreme circumstances.
役割は果たさなかったけど、アフターケアは合格だし、約束は守らなくちゃね。
Without a nod, she pulled herself to her feet.
約束は、いつか守ってもらうとして。
The girl tried to keep a straight face as she offered a hand to the boy still lying on the ground. But yeah, look at this though. It's destroyed.
結果はどうあれ手助けしてもらったし、特別サービスってことで、今夜はもう手を出さないであげる。
Huh?
She bashfully averted her gaze. Though her profile appeared different than it had in the past, it was clearly still the face of the vibrant girl he met the day he first arrived in town.
何を？
Now she's blushing here. As if she had felt his eyes on her, she shot him a frowning growl, or a glare, I mean.
いや、突拍子もないけど、青崎は律儀だなって。
He took her outstretched hand. Feeling his weight as she pulled him up, she could not help but think that he was about the last person she wanted to hear that from.
ところで、今夜はって言うけど、明日からは？
さあ、その時になったら考えるわ。
She shrugged her shoulders as if she was not sure herself. The response was so unlike her that it made Sojiro smile. Was it the solidarity of having escaped death together, or their fleeting camaraderie that made him do so? It might have been for this night only, but the air between them was kind and gentle. A lot had transpired, but the midwinter nightmare had come to an end. The pair had overcome many trials and tribulations and could now leave the mirror realm in their wake. But before that...
随分と身勝手ね。それはあなた一人で決めていいことだったかしら、青子。
Wait, who is that? Is that Alice? Who's Alice? Oh no. Alice is gonna go and kill Sojiro now. It was the voice of a beautiful singing bird and a merciless machine all rolled into one.
アリス。
Because yeah, Aoko couldn't do it, Alice is gonna do it. Oh hell no. Her voice quivered as she spoke the name. The Lady in Black. I actually like that. The Lady in Black, Alice. The night was not over yet. Her name was Alice Koanji. She was a witch whose name struck fear into the heart of Aoko, an avatar of the night who would allow no witnesses. No. Episode end. Okay, we'll continue. We'll continue more. We've played 20 minutes. Okay, nothing, I guess. This is what we saw. Okay, nothing. Let's do more. Yeah, I guess I should have finished this last episode, right? Yeah, I didn't know that it would be like 20 minutes left on the episode. Night of the Witches 2. The melody stirred an emotion like nostalgia within them. Something once familiar but now lost to this world. Honestly, this is so beautiful. Yeah, we just started the episode and it's beautiful. The music, the way it's presented, very nice. They believed beyond a shadow of a doubt that it would play for all eternity. From opening stanza to final coda, it was a mysterious siren song, merry yet longing, that heralded a return from dreams to reality. The night shook. A song was spun. Now their lost paradise was unearthed. Abandoned dreams, forsaken idols, they all responded to the cry of the blue cat. The name of the bell was Diddle Diddle, Banquet of the Night. All fables made possible, all marvels made real, by the magecraft of Alice Kuonji, more magical than magic itself.
随分と身勝手ね。それはあなた一人で決めていいことだったかしら、青子。
Alice sat perched atop the clock tower like a black bird of ill omen. She smoothed the ruffles of her skirt as if she were preening.
アリス。
There was tension in Aoko's voice as she lifted her head. The calm atmosphere from a moment prior had long since been shooed away by Alice's gaze.
あの子、確か。
Sojiro searched his hazy memory. He could not clearly make out her face at this distance, but he was sure he had seen her around town a number of times. Where and when eluded him, however, as the tension in the air kept him from connecting all the dots.
驚いた。随分と仲間思いになったのね、アリス。今夜は私に任せるんじゃなかったっけ？
Aoko readied her guard and took a half a step forward. Unconsciously. From an objective standpoint, it almost looked as though she were protecting the figure beside her. Alice's silence grew ever heavier. Her eyes, fixed on the ground below her, were devoid of emotion. An indescribable sense of dread and pressure laid claim over the plaza.
金？
If he strained his ears, he could make out the faint ringing of a bell echoing in the distance. The rippling sound wave seemed unbelievable, or unbelievably, to be emanating from under the ground.
なあ、青崎、あの子。
黙ってて。
Sojiro stepped back, trying to stay out of the way. It was as though he had been told to go to hell. For the crime of asking if the girl was Aoko's friend.
そうね。仲間思いに当てはまるかは微妙だけど、良くない予感がしたから様子を見に来ただけ。別にあなたの仕事を疑ったわけじゃないわ。
それはどうも。どうせならもう少し早くその良くない予感とやらに気づいてほしかったけど。でもま、ご覧の通り自己解決したわ。夜も遅いし、さっさと帰っていいわよ、アリス。私の仕事っぷりを疑うわけじゃないんでしょ？
Their eyes locked on one another. Alice's stare was uncomfortably cold. Aoko's was bold, daring Alice to air complaints or to air her complaints.
いえ、気が変わったわ。せっかくだし二人で帰りましょう。その方があなたらしいわ。帰りしな、人形の話でも聞かせてちょうだい。
Okay, then go.
らしいって何よ、らしいって。いいから帰れ帰れ、ぐうたらアリス。部屋に閉じこもって役に立たないムクドリでも作ってろっての。
Ooh, worthless birds. A disappointed sigh escaped Alice's delicate lips. It seemed that the black-clad girl was more astonished than angry.
青子、口にしたくないけど、本気？
Quietly, Alice questioned her roommate of nearly 2 years.
呆れた。二人で秘密を守ると言ったのに。まだ半端にそっち側なの？それとも情でも移った？
別に情っていうより私の気分よ。だいたい方針なんてその場その場で変わるもんでしょ。気分ならなおさらよ。そっちこそ一度した約束は絶対守るなんて時代遅れなんじゃない？
The proverbial knives were out now. No quarter was given, no quarter taken. Sadly, their partnership was one of convenience and had not reached the level of mutual understanding. Like, even though they've been, roommates for 2 years, it was nothing. I mean, they ate together, right? Their version of friendship was both delicate and unique. When a conflict of opinion arose, each would refuse to budge until the other crumbled. Neither was concerned for the other's plight, and at least for now, that was how they liked it.
そうね。今の暴言はあなたらしいとは思うけど。
Once again, she let out a sigh even larger than the one before.
言い争いは後にしましょう。そこの彼をいなかったことにするのは私だけで十分だし。
Finally, she struck straight to the point. As if making to move a chess piece, Alice lifted her slender finger. Support. Dude, you gotta duck, you're gonna die. Even the simple action seemed mysterious to Sojiro, the same boy who had been hunted by his classmate Aoko Ozaki and borne witness to an automaton, Aoko's violence, and an animated doll? Though perhaps far beyond the realm of logic, both these things were derived from reality. As surprised as he had been there was no need to think of them as total mysteries. However, when the thing appeared out of thin air from a seemingly unrelated gesture, he had no word for it besides mysterious. Sojiro stood motionless, captivated by the stage performer's magic trick as the girl's single-finger magecraft turned into attack directed at him. A blue light flew from the side to repel it, annihilating it without a trace.
やば。
Aoko immediately regretted her reflexive shot. She broke the fork. She destroyed it.
どういうこと？約束を曲げただけじゃなく、ルールまで破るつもり？
The already chilled midwinter air plunged below freezing. Alice looked calm and collected on the outside, but in reality she was sometimes even more hot-blooded than Aoko, especially when it concerned her familiars. Accidentally destroying one often would result in a week of silent treatment. But maliciously destroying one, Alice reserved the right to retaliate without fair warning.
あっちゃー。いつかやるとは思ったけど、ついに逆鱗に触れちゃったか。
So basically what Aoko did, it's on now. They're gonna fight. Though Aoko was shocked at the depth of her own stupidity, she also was in fact a little bit relieved. She did not intend to make any excuses and she had no regrets. If she had broken her rules, then so had Alice.
青子。
なんていうか。
If anything, this took a load off her mind. After all, there was no going back. Aoko never intended to break her own rules. If there was anything for Aoko to regret, it was putting too little power into her shot.
私的に今夜こいつに死なれるのは困るのよ。なんで日を改めて殺しに来てくれないアリス。いいでしょ、たった1日ぐらい。
Taking on a pro bono case in the defense of a suspect Sojiro was the socially acceptable thing.
それは市場。
悪い？一宿一般の恩義って割と大事にしてるの、私。
私との協定より。
ええ、時と場合によっては。
Sojiro's human rights had not yet entered the argument. The girls were busy pouring oil on each other's flames. The girl clad in black was the first to move, or rather, to erupt.
そう。よくわかったわ、青子。私は彼をここで殺す。あなたは彼をここだけ生かす。つまり私と戦うということでいい？
そんなのいいわけないじゃない。
Aoko bit back the retort. She was very familiar with Alice's magecraft, and knew painfully well how many mystics were hidden in Alice's tiny body. The odds of victory were essentially non-existent, and once the first shot had been fired, Alice Koonji was without mercy. Whether facing a roommate or a friend, a most beloved family member or a stranger. Once Alice began to fight as a witch, she became a heartless, unflappable monster. Aoko advanced another half step forward as if to encourage herself. It was too late to back down now. The situation was no longer a trivial quarrel over a witness. The bedrock of their so-called friendship had nothing to do with their individual abilities, but everything to do with being equals in will. That is why, in order to stay true to herself, Aoko had no room to compromise or deception.
もちろんあんたを殺すことになってもそこのバカは生かしきるわ。それに
Her magic circuits howled as they kicked into gear. Her body, which had mostly been dormant during the battle with the puppet, ignited, preparing to demonstrate its true worth.
それにどの道最後には殺し合う仲でしょ、私たち。
Honestly, that spinning blue thing is like Iron Man's, what do you call it again? His score in the middle, right? Yeah, it kind of looks like it. We're going to end up killing each other in the end anyway. Her courage overpowered any fear she had for her opponent. Turning her body, her magic circuits to become like the barrel of a gun, Aoko fired a magic bullet. It was an exceedingly basic magecraft formula. There was no nature interference, no creating of wind, a parting of water, or a hastening of decay. It was simply the process of converting the imaginary action known as magical energy into something real before releasing it as heat. Thus, Aoko's destructive power was equal to her supply of magical energy. The magic bullets she had used against Sojiro were among the most basic single-action magecraft that did not require an incantation. At her present ability, Aoko's main mode of attack, her magic bullet, could be fired at the 3 levels of power. These were at the 2nd level. These required a double-action magecraft, a casting through activation of her crest combined with a simplified incantation. And basically it was useless. However, without blinking, Alice dispersed the shot that Aoko had mustered all of her spirit to fire. I mean, she's way too strong. Like, look at her face. It's like it's nothing, basically. Look at Sojiro behind. Aoko tutted in frustration. A swift sneak attack magecraft that used a simplified incantation would not be enough to break Alice's guard.
相変わらずお堅いこと。そのから一段と独りよがりになってるんじゃない？
Aoko provoked Alice in order to disguise her own lack of composure. Somehow Alice seemed delighted by Aoko's bravado.
売り言葉に買い言葉というやつね。こういう勢いだけのきっかけは初めてだけど。驚いたわ。こんなくだらない理由でもその気になるものなのね、人間って。
Alice giggled. Smiling with a heartfelt amazement, Alice gestured her left hand toward the earth. Zap, zap, zap. Countless utensils shot out from underneath the cobblestones paving the plaza.
しずきくん、後ろに飛んで。
She grabbed his hand as she shouted, jumping backward before even a chance to respond. As if they had wheels of their own, the utensils that had suddenly appeared from the ground gave chase. As the barrier of spears grew around them, Aoko and Sojiro put some distance between themselves and the clock tower.
これで終わり？
Just under 30 feet stood between them and Alice. The lethal weapons that had crumbled the stone beneath them fell short of what Aoko had anticipated. They now encircled the clock tower, making the scene look like the burning of a witch at the stake.
普通逆じゃない。ここは私たちを逃がさないよう槍で周りを囲むものでしょ。
The path behind them was safe. If they wanted, they could try to make a break for the main gate and escape.
いいのアリス。悪いけど逃げられるなら逃げるわよ。私。
If she could just make it back to town, it would be Aoko's win. All she wanted to do was let Sojiro get away for the night, so if she could get him back to the city, it would be, for the most part, a mission accomplished.
Huh?
Or so she had thought. Without even offering a glance at her targets below, Alice carefully and lovingly pulled out a bottle from her pocket.
緑のフラスコ？
A green flask.
あれって確か。やば！とにかくファイヤー！
Her shot was deflected with ease. Gone was Aoko's earlier bravado. It was only natural. Aoko had indeed grown as a mage. So green flask fire. Like in Game of Thrones they had that, right? What did they call that again? Wildfire, if I'm correct? Something like that. Over the last 2 years of study, her studies had progressed well. And she'd more or less gotten a grasp on her roommate's tendencies and abilities. This had made her conceited enough to believe that under favorable circumstances, she'd been able to show Alice a thing or two in a fight. Alice uncorked the magical bottle. A gentle breeze caressed her cheek. Diddle Diddle fled as a new player stepped onto the stage. But from where would it enter? The sound of footsteps, a nostalgic parade approached. Oh, everything is power now. Unfortunately, it was true. This was a miracle that Aoko Aozaki, an apprentice mage, had never witnessed. The dead came to life. The inanimate awakened. The woods were enveloped by the mist. Fire-breathing lizards lurked in the swamps. Puppets made merry at midnight. Alice Kawanji's slender fingers had transfigured the entirety of the park, as if gently stroking the back of an elderly cat.
いいわ。ごっこ遊びをしましょう、青子。
For one night, the wasteland of dashed hopes and dreams were restored to its former glory. It was an immortal monster ready to devour reality. A dark fairy tale that once unleashed would never let its prey escape.
逃げられるものなら逃げてみせて。どこまで行けるかわからないけど、この夜を越えることができたのなら、あなた。
Her declaration marked the start of a desperate battle, the witch in black laughing at her friend, her musical mirth filled with affection, sadness, and innocent delight. Faded glory returned to Kitsy Land. The neon glow of innumerable lights illuminated the night. Won't people see this from afar though? And they're gonna say, "Oh, Kitsy Land is operational again." Speakers fill the air with the sound of vinyl music. Merry-go-rounds, small and large, whirled round and round. All in all, it made for a mind-bending spectacle. It was certainly possible to power the facilities by transmuting magical energy into electricity via alchemy. That said, simply supplying the park with electricity would not have brought back to life that which was broken. So basically, Alice is extremely powerful. The young woman did this not by mixing chemicals in a compound, but by melting down a divine providence into a witch's brew.
まずいわね。アリスのプロイは何個か見てきたけど、今回のは桁が違う。セット。
Connecting. Stifling her anxiety, Aoko fired up the crest on her right arm. If magic circuits were a mage's engine, then their crest was software that assisted their magecraft. For the fledgling mage, Aoko, this was her trump card. All she had to do was supply magical energy to her crest-based formula. It may not have been the strongest magecraft, but it was hers. Proof that she was not the successor. Proof that she was the successor of the Aozaki lineage.
講師2層、直流数門。
The pattern of her crest shifted to execute the formula, which then connected to her magic circuits. The process resembled trains changing rails, a puzzle involving dozens of circuits. She constructed it as swiftly as possible without sacrificing the quality of its construction. Instant magecraft cast without an incantation would not be enough to reach Alice Kawanji. Aoko had gauged the strength of Alice's defense with her initial shots. She would dial up the power 5 times the next time, driving 20 tons of force into her target. Alice had the protection of the thick hanging fog and the dense barrier around her. However, this attack would be more than enough to pierce through both. If Aoko struck home, at best it would cave in Alice's chest and end the fight. At worst, it would at least knock Alice down from her position atop the clock tower.
そろそろいいかな。
Sojour is just like, what is happening here? As always, there was one guy who spoiled the deadly tension, pulling Aoko out of a killer mode. Sojiro had been looking back and forth between Aoko and Alice in confusion. He was like, what is happening today? It's so weird.
それでどういう話になったんだ？
Look at Aoko's face. Annoyed yet again. He said it like he might ask for directions to the train station. Normally, she would have lashed out screaming in response, but his entirely serious tone shocked her more than it angered her.
信じられない。慣れてきた。
Is this my life? Aoko swallowed back a sigh and returned her focus to activating her crest.
交渉は決裂。ちょっと怒らせすぎた。あの子から見れば、まあいい機会だし、遊園地ごと私を亡き者にしようって腹ね。
Sojiro tilted his head as if begging for a simpler explanation.
私、割とあの子に恨まれてるから。捕まったが最後、どんな風に殺されるか想像すらできないわ。要するに、あんたも私もあの子をどうにかしないと生きて帰れないってことよ。
そんなとばっちりだ。
お、
まあそういうことになるかもね。
As Sojiro protested in a tone wholly inappropriate to the situation, Aoko let another blast rip from her right arm. She was not aiming at Sojiro though. A little earlier in the day, and Aoko would have been happy to do exactly that, but now her attention was focused on the girl in the black atop the clock tower. She could hardly grasp the situation amidst her astonishment. I mean, the shot was way too far though. Like Alice could protect herself from the time that beam reached her, right? Yeah. Like it's way too far. She fired the strongest, fastest magical bullet. She had the ability to conjure and Alice blocked it. That was to be expected. But I guess it's fast, but still, I mean, Alice is Alice. When Alice set her mind to defending herself, such an attack was child's play. But what just happened? Something she had never seen before had leapt to Alice's defense. A team of horses? A plague of locusts? No, those things existed in this world, unlike what Aoko had just witnessed. Normal creatures could not form like a spontaneous cloud of fog and then dissipate just as quickly into the night sky. Impossible things moved in impossible ways. Alice was not even supplying them with any power source. Those things never needed power in the first place. Those broken and discarded things did not allow the rules of mankind. This was an invasion of fairy tales. Compared to them, the automaton looked merciful. Autonomous puppets were products of magecraft, but even then, they behaved as puppets should. These newly animated things, however, were nothing of that sort. Empty vessels became living creatures. Dummies warped into malformed beings. So basically, it's a fantasy show now. Fantasy game. Or fairy tale, I guess. Fairy tale, yes, fairy tale. There was a fog so dense with magical energy, it visibly spread to all corners of the park, bringing with it monstrous welcoming party that easily numbered over 1,000. Look at that. The pumpkin carriage. And then flying pigs, I guess. On by the shuddering sensation running down her spine, Aoko fired a barrage of single-action magic bullets. Her impulsive attack scattered futility. The Knights of the Merry-Go-Round soared into the sky. Green, fire-breathing lizards flocked. The bakeries opened their doors once again, and human-sized loaves of fresh bread marched from their ovens as platoons of newly baked soldiers.
Aozaki, uchiro!
Dude, that is terrifying though. Look at that. Aoko and Sojiro were completely surrounded. The Ferris wheel creaked as it gently turned. A rickety train car raced about the roller coaster tracks with Kitsy, tears streaming down its face aboard. It was a grossly twisted fantasy. The girl in black reigned over the insanity-filled park. And now we're screwed. Aoko was transfixed by the scene unfolding around her. Then she realized what was happening.
そうだ、これは。
Alice had once told her of Meinster's familiars. Among them were 3 of particular notoriety, one of which she recalled being capable of something similar to this. And it was called...
プロイキッシャー、フラットスナーク。
青崎、だから後ろ。
Struck by Aoko's bullets, the creatures exploded into splinters. It was clear Aoko's shots were becoming more powerful, but it was also the case that these beings were less robust than your average automata.
しずきくん、こっち。
Aoko turned away from the clock tower, grabbed his hand, and began to run.
青崎。
ごめん、これ無理。逃げるわよ。
逃げるってどこに？
どこって、とにかく行けるところまで。
Hey, just run away. She shouted as though trying to persuade herself as she valiantly cleared a path. Ako's magic bullets flew like a scream, blowing away the creatures that stood in their way, or rather simply gathered around. She made a hole for them to escape through. Honestly though, I wonder how this would end. Like how can they make Alice stop, right? Magic bullets exploded like blue fireworks. Aoko and Sojiro ran down the bumpy brick road. Their bond, forged in the heat of battle, went far beyond mutual convenience. They headed for the park's exit at full speed without exchanging a word or a look. The weirdness only extended as far as the park border. So they would be safe as long as they made it outside. But... okay, we can see it now. Actual breads. But speaking in pure numbers, the differences in strength was 2 versus an army. Or rather, 1 versus an army. Sojiro was hardly useful in this situation, and manpower wasn't really the issue here since they were facing puppets.
さっきの大丈夫？上からこうでっかいハサミが落ちてきたけど。
Aoko shouted as she blasted away the monsters that stood in their path. There was no time to stop for breath or even to look back.
なんとかギリギリ。
As Sojiro pursued his voice too had naturally become shrill. 5 minutes earlier, they had broken out of the siege at the plaza surprisingly fast. It seemed that the residents' awakening differed case by case, with larger creatures taking additional time.
ラッキー、朝に弱いタイプばっかと見た。
Aoko joked as she mowed down the small fry that popped up. But then, it's gonna be a bigger one. Without warning, something outrageous extended its way down from above them. It's a croissant monster. Oh hell no, what is that? It was the claws of a 6-foot lobster adorning the roof of a seafood restaurant. Its pincers were like a guillotine as Aoko and Sojiro cut across the front of the restaurant. The Red King pressed in tremendous speed, keen on splitting them each in two. The gate was just on the other side of the restaurant, but they had to take the long way around in order to lose a giant lobster snapping at their heels. Waiting along their detour had been hordes of monsters, too many to count.
なんとかギリギリ。
Sojiro called out in response, recalling just how narrowly he avoided his head being severed clean from his body.
って前、うわ、なんだあれ、焼きたてか。
そうみたいね。要するに下級兵士よ。
Aoko halted her sprint and set her crest into full operation.
距離7、6、5メートル。あの程度ならスナップだけで事足りる。
Sliding along the brick path, she brandished her right arm. She loosed a shower of magic bullets. Snap was a single action spell that favored rate of fire over power, and it mowed down the monster with satisfying pops.
青崎そっちも。
了解。
Blue explosions bloomed along the lamp-lit promenade. Aoko's curtain of fire fanned out like a beautiful star mine fireworks show. The toy bread Marin turned into charcoal.
いける。数でこそ押されてるけど、この状態が続くなら逃げ切れる。しずきくん、そっちは？
いない、空いてる。ここからなら入り口の東側に出られるはずだ。
With a magical barrage that would leave an average spellcaster blue in the face, the novice mage broke through the siege. But yeah, honestly, this game has become so intense now. Like, it was so calm the first couple episodes, and now it's just super intense. Meanwhile, a single bird keenly watched everything unfold. Yeah, and I didn't expect Alice is the one to be fighting with them. Chirp. Cheep, 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 chirp. The moment the bluebird descended into its master's field of vision, it made its high-pitched call. The girl listened expressionally to the report.
構わないわ。予想通りよ。撃つこと、壊すことしか脳がなくても、青子の魔力の使い方は波じゃないから。急増の使い魔じゃまだ相手にはならないでしょう。
The robin flapped its wings as it tweeted in response. Perhaps it was criticizing Alice for complimenting Aoko. Or perhaps it was jealous of Aoko for being complimented by Alice. Alice could barely make sense of its chirping rant. Aoko Ozaki was a novice mage. Until just 2 years ago, she was someone who grew up with no background in magecraft. Compared to Alice, who was raised as a witch from birth, Aoko possessed far less talent and experience. Winning was an impossibility for Aoko. In a contest of skills in magecraft, 10 times out of 10, Alice would be declared a victor. I mean, can you look at the background? You can see how insane this is, right? Alice did this. However, a battle to the death was a different story. Alice Kuonji was not a mage suited for battle. Aoko Aozaki, on the other hand, was built for it. In a contest that pitted magical energy against magical energy, even Alice would concede that Aoko had a upper hand. So I guess Alice is more on, support. A support mage, right? I mean, when she activated this, she opened a, what do you call it? The green flask, right? It was not like she did it. It was not like her magic did it fully. Like, for example, like she casted something, right? It was more of a item that she used, that she made, most likely, right? That activated all of this. Aoko's manipulation of magical energy was extraordinary. The scale of her magic circuits was smaller than that of Alice's, but the rotational speed, durability, and quality of magical energy produced, not to mention the efficiency, were otherworldly. That was Aoko Aozaki's hallmark. Though she had many failings when handling sophisticated formulae, in just 2 years of practice, Aoko had surpassed Alice in simple formulae that merely required an energy input. She also had genius-level instincts and adaptability. Though Aoko was not particularly proficient at executing magecraft, she was terrifyingly fast. If she had not been born outside the Aozaki clan, she would have had doubtless risen to fame as a competitive sharpshooter.
でも残念ね。
In a straight shootout, Alice did not stand a chance. Alice Kuonji had never bothered to learn primitive magecraft like magic bullets in the first place. She was the classic puppeteer. Her familiars would carry out all the particulars of her battle as her arms and legs.
制限時間には気づいているわよね、青子。
The thing is, even though, yeah, her magic is like that, you cannot really get close to her because of the amount of familiars that she has, right? It's very hard. But we'll see, I guess, by the end of this battle.
魔力はいくらでも貸してあげるけど、あなたの魔弾はあと半時で根崩れするわ。
Chirping as if in agreement, the robin took flight. It had been nearly 10 minutes since Alice had made the amusement park into her dominion. To what would the green fog give birth next? Aoko and Sojiro, still running about, would soon come to understand the gravity of their situation. Alice.
しずきくん、正門ってこっち？
Can you even escape this place though? Like, wouldn't Alice just follow you afterwards?
ああ、その店を曲がれば出口だ。
I mean, not this place, but can you even escape Alice? Running non-stop at full speed had them at their limits, their breath ragged, the two flew around the corner. Amusement park though it was, this was still the infamous Skitsy land. It would have taken a high school student 20 minutes to sprint the entire circumference of the park. And though they were now intimately familiar with the park's geography, it was changing beyond recognition. The transformation was not limited to the park's residents either.
青崎。
何を？
言いたくないんだけど、この遊園地広くなってないか？
It was. Their problem wasn't as mundane as mistaking the location of the exit, right? Exist? Or getting lost in the terrain. No, the park was warping and twisting in upon itself. Even now, its structure was expanding and growing like that of a living creature. Soon, the pair noticed that the mob encircling them had grown even stronger. Entrusting her back to Sojiro, Aoko summoned all of her efforts just to keep from whining. No one would have thought twice if it had been just Sojiro cowering in shock and terror. But Aoko doing the same? She bore responsibility for causing and then dragging him into this mess. She could not afford to succumb to panic.
大丈夫。落ち着け私。遊園地の果てはある。遠いけど、鉄柵はちゃんと見える。フラットスナークだって制限なしってわけじゃない。外に逃げるって選択は正しいはず。現状、外までは目算で1キロぐらいだけど。
Up until now, they had been too concerned with simply running. Their breathing had become labored. If they had to run another mile without rest, they end up collapsing along the way.
青崎、体大丈夫か？
え？
The whisper from her behind pulled Aoko back to reality.
大丈夫だけど、ちょっと一息入れたいわね。
賛成。ここから休みなしで外周まで走るのはやめた方がいい。
驚いた。しずきくんも外まで走ろう派とは。
After saying this, she let slip a giggle. Far from debilitated by panic, her comrade in arms had been analyzing the situation and forming an escape plan.
ちょっとだけ建物に逃げ込むのは。
気は進まないけど、それしかないわね。
The breadmen had them completely surrounded. Perhaps this might have been a problem for an average person, but for Aoko, breaking through the formation to get to the building would be a cinch. The issue was,
問題はどんな店を選ぶかってこと。
yeah, what if they went to a store and it would transform, right? Would it eat them? She considered the characteristics of the transforming park. What would pose a danger and what was safe? The most important factor was not the strength or the complexity of the building.
そうだ。選ぶならあの単純さで正しいはず。しずきくん、あっち。
After rooting the monsters, Aoko hopped behind the counter, soon followed by Sojiro.
カウンターに隠れてて。
Like she was in a western shootout, Aoko squared off against the monsters, using the counter as a cover. Look at Sojiro's face. I like how serious the situation is, right?
ここならスナーク化しないんだ。
Yeah, it's very serious, but like you still have some funny expressions that we see in the situation right now. But yeah, I guess we will take a break here, and the story is getting very, very intense. Alice, she's gonna do it herself because Aoko couldn't do it to Sojiro, right? And yeah, Alice got angry, breaking the rules and stuff. Transformed this whole park into her wonderland. So let's see what happens. How do they win? How do they escape? How do they stop Alice from doing all of this? I mean, of course it's gonna happen, but how? Yes, how? We're gonna have to find out. So anyways, we are gonna continue this and do more of Witch on the Holy Night in the next one. So I'll just see you then, guys. Bye bye.